All right, so we are back here in AutoCAD 3D. Now we're going to be looking at doing some modification of these 3D solids. Okay, so I'm going to go over here actually to the Solid tab. And under the Solid tab, it has the basic shapes that we've already looked at, but it also has some additional commands or editing tools that we're going to look at in this video. So we've already looked at the basic shapes, box, cylinders, etc. We've already looked at the union, subtraction, intersection commands. We've already talked about press pulling. And so what I want to look at today is some of these solid editing commands right here. So one feature in AutoCAD as we're doing 3D solids is you can chamfer or fillet an edge on a 3D solid just like you can in 2D AutoCAD. So I'm going to hit fillet edge, and I'm going to once again need to dictate the radius size. So let's say that I want a radius here, so I'm going to click on radius. Let's say that I want that radius at 1 inch here. So I type in 1 and hit enter, and now it says what edge do you want to fillet. So I could fillet, say for example, one edge. Notice here as I click it, it gives me like a little preview of that one edge. You can also come in here and fillet other edges, and it will fillet them all at once. So I click them, it's going to show me this little wireframe of how it's going to be filleted. I hit enter. Once it says, are you sure this is what you want to do? So if you accept it, hit enter again or spacebar again, and now it has filleted those four corners right there. If I were to do that same one, let's say that, let's see here, let me pop a distance. So the distance from here to here is 2 inches. So let's say I fillet this edge and now I set my radius at 1.5. If I were to select this edge and then this edge, it winds up doing something goofy here. So be careful of that. Make sure that you watch out that your filleted edges are not larger when combined than the rest of your part. But the filleting edges here work well. So let's say I want a radius of 0.25. Let's see here. Yeah, okay, there we go. 0.25. And now I can click on my four corners or four edges and hit enter and enter again. And now it's rounded out those cornered edges. Okay. Same thing for the chamfer. If I go in here and do the chamfer edge and I set my distance of, let's say, 0.5. And distance 2, we'll set that at 0.5. I can come in here and I can chamfer a couple of these edges here, and it's going to trim out those edges or chamfer those edges. Okay? All right, so that's the filleting edges and chamfering edges. Another thing that we can do here is we can also slice an item. So let's say, for example, that we want to slice this box, and we want to slice this box down the middle section. I can click on the slice command, and it says what object do you want to slice. So let me go ahead and select this object and hit enter. And now it says specify the start point of the slicing plane, or you can have some other options here. So if you know what axis that you want to slice this on, or if you have 3 points that you want to slice this object about, there's different ways that you can go about slicing it. So let's say that I want to slice this object in half vertically. So vertically would be the YZ plane. So I'm going to click on the YZ plane, and it says what point do you want to slice it. So I'm going to pick on the midpoint because I want to slice it in half. And then it says, do you want to pick another point or just keep both sides? So I'm going to hit enter by default because I want to keep both. And now it has sliced this box in half. So that's a nice feature. If you have an item that, say for example, has a part on it, you need to cut that off. I can also do the slice command and slice it about some sort of oblique axis here. So I pick the slice, I select my object and hit enter. Let's say on this one I want to do a 3-point slice. So I'm going to hit 3 point. It says what's the point on the first plane. So let's say I want to slice it from the back edge to the bottom edge here. So I'm going to pick point 1 back here at this back corner, point 2 snapping to the midpoint of that front corner, point 3 the back corner again. And I'm going to hit enter to keep both sides, and now it has sliced a plane, slicing that object in half. Okay, so these are just some different features here, or modify commands for a 3D print. Thicken thickening, let's do an extrude. If I extrude a line, that goes into a solid. Let me explode this real quickly. So if I were to extrude just a 2D line, it winds up becoming this surface. It's not a solid. It's just a surface, or it's like a wire mesh. If I were to hit my thicken command, I can now turn that from a surface, and now I can actually thicken it into an actual 3D object instead of a surface. If you get into 3D printing items, 3D printing does not work well with surfaces. You need solids for it to 3D print. So that's a feature there for that thicken. I can, let's say I want to take this and I want to find the wire frame. So I want to get all of these lines drawn in 3D, but I want all the edges to be single lines. I could go extract edges and select my item there. And now if I were to delete out that solid, it has all of my edges, except for apparently this one going across because it was rounded there at the top. But all of the other edges it now has. So let me undo that. I'll go back to, okay, so notice here it leaves the wires in as well. Or not wires, but the lines, single lines. In old school AutoCAD, we used to call that wireframe modeling. I think they might still use that term some. Mesh modeling. So watch out that you don't leave those lines in there. It will mess you up later on as you go to snap to edges or you start moving things around. Sometimes it'll give you errors. All right, let's talk taper facing here. So we can do a taper face, and so let's say that let's spin this around, and let's say that we want to taper this back edge right here. So I can come in here and I can select on the face of the item I want to taper, and I hit enter, and it says specify the base point. So I want the base point at this back edge here, and now it says specify another point along the axis of tapering. So I want to snap here, and now it says specify the angle. So if I want it to go, let's say 30 degrees back, I just type in 30 and hit enter, and now it tapers that face 30 degrees. Okay, so some different features then that you can play around with here on modifying these 3D shapes. One more I'm going to show you here is I'm going to show you the sweep command, and I'll do a revolve command as well. So let's say that I want to sweep this circular pattern around this rectangular shape here. In this particular case, I need to go ahead and rotate this to stand that up. So I'm just going to go to my 3D rotate about the base point on one of my axes, and we'll stand that up 90 degrees. Now, that circle is centered up on that line, and I'm going to rotate, I'm going to sweep this circle around these 4 lines right here. So I hit sweep, and I tell it what I want to sweep, which is my circle, and I hit enter, and it says pick the sweep path. If I click that one line, it now swept that whole circle or shape around that path. Let me erase that out. Actually, let me undo that. It converts your line and your circle into a solid. So let me undo that. If I want to sweep it around all 4 of these lines, I need to join these together. So I'm going to type in join to click this line, this line, this line, and this, and hit enter. And now these lines are all joined together like a polyline. And so if I were to sweep this now, sweeping this circle, hit enter, it says select your path, I want it around there. Now it actually sweeps that into a 3-dimensional solid. And keep in mind, it converts that circle and that line into the solid once you dictate the sweep path. So if I erase that solid, my lines and my circle are now gone. Okay, so that's the sweep command. That can be a lot of fun if you want to sweep different shapes or profiles. You can combine that with like a helix, for example, and you can make a spring or some sort of compression type spring. Let's do a revolve. So let's say that I want a line down here, out here, and let's say that I'm going to do a little, I don't know, little shape like this. Okay, now I can also revolve this, and I can revolve these items right here around this line, and it says how much do you want to revolve it around. So let's say that I want it 180 degrees. Notice this is a wire frame here, okay, because those were individual lines. If you come in here and join these together, so making that one unit, and now you do a revolve command, revolving this item around this axis from top to bottom. Now it's going to make it as a solid. So let me go 180 degrees. Now that's actually a solid piece. So you can use that revolve to make either a hollow shell or to make a solid entity. And so that's a nice feature too. Let me undo that. Let me go back and do that one more time in a 360 degree rotation. Let me type in 360, and now I have that profile revolved around into a 3D solid. All right, so we've talked here, revolve, sweep, and some of the solid editing commands.